The morning sun painted the grove with golden hues as disciples gathered under the serene shade of tall bamboo. Their robes swayed gently in the breeze, carrying whispers of nature's harmony to their hearts. One disciple, named Ananda, broke the silence, his voice tinged with worry. "Master, why does contentment seem so elusive?" Buddha turned his compassionate gaze upon him, his voice calm. "Ananda, let me share with you a story. Years ago, in a distant village, there lived a wealthy merchant named Arjuna, consumed by his desires for wealth. Arjuna had everything: silken robes, golden ornaments, and overflowing granaries. Yet he often complained of dissatisfaction within. One day, Arjuna approached Buddha, seeking the secret to finding happiness amid his abundant possessions and relentless craving. Buddha welcomed Arjuna with a serene smile, gesturing for him to sit under the sprawling branches of the Bodhi tree. He asked, "Arjuna, if a man drinks salt water when thirsty, will his thirst be quenched, or will it deepen?" Arjuna, perplexed but reflective, responded, "Master, drinking salt water only increases thirst. It offers no satisfaction to the parched throat." Buddha nodded, his words measured yet profound. Such is the nature of craving. It amplifies desire, leaving the soul emptier than before. True fulfillment arises not from possessing more, but from knowing the sufficiency of what one already holds. Buddha continued softly. Arjuna looked puzzled, hesitating. "Master, how can one know what is sufficient? The mind always yearns for more, endlessly unsatisfied." Buddha gestured toward a farmer toiling nearby, saying, "Look at that farmer. Let us observe his contentment closely today." The farmer, named Dev, tilled his land with devotion, humming a melody that resonated with peace and unshaken joy. As the sun began to descend, Dev rested under a tree, eating a simple meal of rice and lentils with gratitude. Buddha remarked to Arjuna, "Dev finds joy not in abundance but in his gratitude for what little he possesses." Gratitude transforms sufficiency into abundance, while craving turns abundance into perpetual emptiness. Buddha concluded with a tone of quiet clarity. Arjuna, thoughtful now, murmured, "Master, my possessions fill my house but not my heart." "I see what you mean." Buddha smiled. "Then Arjuna, you must empty your heart of greed to make space for the seed of contentment." Arjuna asked, "But Master, would I not lose everything if I stopped striving to gather wealth as I do?" Buddha's voice softened with understanding. "Strive not to hoard, but to harmonize desires with inner peace. That balance leads to joy." He added, "Possessions serve purpose, yet they should not enslave the spirit. Let them flow like water, useful yet never clinging." Days passed, and Arjuna began releasing some of his riches to aid the needy. Feeling a strange lightness in his soul, one day he told Buddha, "Master, I now understand. In giving, I find fullness. In wanting less, I find more." Buddha's eyes twinkled with gentle approval, his words reaffirming, "The heart finds true peace only when it stops chasing illusions and starts embracing simplicity." Ananda, listening intently, raised another query. "Master, how can we practice knowing what's enough when the mind constantly tempts us?" Buddha picked up a small clay cup nearby and filled it with water, asking Ananda to observe carefully. He explained, "When the cup overflows, adding more water only spills it. Similarly, seeking excess diminishes joy, spilling contentment away." If the mind tempts you, remind yourself that neither the sun nor moon competes to shine. Both fulfill their purpose uniquely. Buddha's metaphor resonated deeply with Ananda, whose nod signaled his understanding of embracing sufficiency over endless comparison or yearning. Later that evening, the disciples shared among themselves lessons they gleaned, discussing contentment as a practice rooted in mindfulness daily. Buddha's presence like still water reflecting the moonlight, illuminated their thoughts, guiding them toward inner peace and a shared resolve. The forest remained quiet, the teachings settling into the hearts of those present, like seeds waiting to blossom into wisdom. Another day, beneath the spreading canopy of the Bodhi tree, Buddha sat quietly, his serene presence grounding the disciples nearby. The wind carried the scent of blooming jasmine, mingling with the whispers of curious seekers approaching to ask their questions. Among them was Chandra, a prosperous merchant, his fine robes shimmering as he bowed respectfully before Buddha, his eyes clouded with worry. "Master," Chandra began hesitantly, "I have amassed wealth beyond measure. Yet I find my heart weighed down by unease and emptiness." Buddha gestured for Chandra to sit, his voice gentle. "Chandra, let me share the story of a king and his people. Long ago, a revered king named Suddhodana ruled a prosperous kingdom, famed for its fertile lands and abundant resources. Despite his royal status and flourishing kingdom, Suddhodana often looked at his people and felt uneasy about their well-being. One evening, Suddhodana wandered through the village, observing the struggles of his people, their joys tempered by hardship. Moved deeply, the king began distributing food and clothes among the needy, watching their gratitude light their weary faces. From then on, Suddhodana regularly shared his resources with those in need, sensing an unfamiliar joy blossom within his heart. One day, the king confided in his closest advisor, "In their smiles, I find riches greater than my golden vaults." Buddha paused, his gaze steady on Chandra, continuing, "The act of giving nourished Suddhodana's soul, far beyond material treasures could." Chandra leaned forward, seeking clarity. "Master, does happiness always require giving? How does one balance sharing with one's own needs?" Buddha smiled knowingly, his response reflective. "Chandra, like rivers, wealth should flow outward to nourish others, lest it stagnates and poisons the spirit." He added, "Giving does not empty your reserves but replenishes your heart, creating an endless wellspring of peace and fulfillment." "Master," another disciple interjected thoughtfully, "how does one cultivate the mindset of selfless giving when fear of scarcity clouds the mind?" Buddha reached for a nearby fruit, breaking it open to reveal its seeds, his action deliberate and symbolic. "Look at these seeds," he instructed calmly. "When planted, they grow into trees bearing fruit far beyond the initial offering." He elaborated, "Such is the nature of giving. It multiplies the goodness, scattering seeds of joy far beyond your sight." The disciple, inspired by the lesson, nodded in understanding, silently resolving to share more freely despite her personal fears. Turning back to Chandra, Buddha continued, "Let me offer you a practice. Begin by sharing small portions." Observing the shift in your heart, Chandra promised to try, his mind slowly unraveling old fears. Guided by Buddha's wisdom and gentle encouragement, days passed, and Chandra started distributing food to hungry villagers and coins to wandering monks in need. With every act of generosity, Chandra felt lighter, his soul liberated from the chains of greed that had once bound him. One evening, Chandra returned to Buddha, bowing deeply before him, gratitude shimmering in his eyes, his voice resonating with transformation. "Master," Chandra began humbly, "your teachings changed me. Giving fills my heart like nothing else, teaching me joy beyond wealth's reach." Buddha's face reflected satisfaction, his response a quiet affirmation. Generosity unlocks the door to joy, turning scarcity into abundance within the spirit. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Buddha addressed the disciples, his voice carrying the weight of timeless wisdom. "Happiness thrives in flow, not in accumulation. In sharing, we create harmony that transcends selfish boundaries and fosters enduring contentment." The disciples listened with rapt attention, understanding that giving was not merely an action but a state of being. Among them, Sariputta asked earnestly, "Master, is there a limit to giving? Or can generosity itself lead to imbalance?" Buddha's gaze softened as he spoke. "Sariputta, balance is key. Giving without mindfulness can exhaust resources, leaving neither the giver nor receiver fulfilled." He clarified further, "Generosity should be intentional, guided by wisdom, ensuring both sustainability and meaningful impact in every act." Sariputta bowed his head, thanking Buddha for the guidance, resolved to follow the principle of thoughtful giving in his practices. Later that evening, under the starlit sky, the disciples discussed the teachings, each recounting acts of giving that had shaped their journeys. Buddha sat silently, his presence inspiring deep reflection, his teachings settling like roots into their hearts, ready to bear fruit. The forest's quiet hum seemed to echo their resolve, the seeds of generosity planted in their spirits now growing steadily within. Another day, the disciples gathered by a flowing river, watching its steady rhythm as Buddha sat under a tree in silence. The gentle sound of water seemed to echo their thoughts, minds restless with questions about desire and its effects on happiness. Sariputta approached Buddha, bowing deeply, his voice humble. "Master, does renouncing all desires lead to peace? Or is balance key?" Buddha smiled patiently, his voice calm. "Sariputta, let me tell you about a monk who sought to renounce all earthly desires. This monk, named Punya, vowed to detach completely from desires, believing their elimination was the path to absolute enlightenment. Punya traveled far, meditating daily, rejecting comforts, and suppressing every yearning that surfaced. Yet his heart remained restless. One day, Punya met an old hermit living near the mountains, whose presence radiated an unusual sense of inner balance. The hermit asked, "Why do you wander with such strain? Punya, what is it that you seek so earnestly?" Punya replied, "I renounce all desires, yet I find my mind unsettled. Is there something I fail to understand?" The hermit smiled, offering wisdom. "Even the desire to renounce desire is itself a desire. Balance, not denial, brings peace." Punya listened closely, his heart resonating with the hermit's words. Reflecting on his strained efforts and their elusive results, Buddha paused, his gaze falling on the river, continuing, "Desires, like this water, flow naturally. It is their excess that creates turbulence in life." Sariputta reflected, asking, "Master, how does one balance desires without being consumed by them or losing sight of inner peace?" Buddha picked up a stone and dropped it into the river, watching the ripples spread across its surface thoughtfully. "Observe this stone, Sariputta. Desires are ripples in the water. Balance is the stillness between them," Buddha explained. He added, "Balance does not mean rejecting all desires but holding them lightly, allowing them to come and go without attachment." Another disciple asked, "Master, can all desires coexist peacefully? Or are there certain desires that disrupt harmony completely?" Buddha responded, "Desires that stem from greed disrupt balance, while desires for growth or compassion enrich harmony without causing strain." The disciples nodded, contemplating how their own desires shape their actions and influence their individual pursuit of happiness. Buddha continued, "Life, like the strings of a lute, creates music when balanced. Tightness or looseness leads only to discord." Sariputta asked again, "Master, how can one recognize when desires have grown excessive and begin to disrupt inner balance?" Buddha smiled, picking up a clay cup, pouring water into it until the liquid overflowed, making the disciples observe. He explained, "When the cup overflows, it signals excess. Similarly, desires that consume your peace signal imbalance, urging mindful adjustment." Later that evening, The disciples shared among themselves stories of desires they had struggled with. Seeking deeper understanding together, Buddha's presence reminded them of still water's tranquility, inspiring reflection on desire's fleeting nature and the wisdom of harmonious balance. Under the moonlit sky, Sariputta resolved to observe his desires mindfully, not to suppress them but to hold them without attachment. The wind carried their thoughts like whispers, scattering seeds of realization that would grow into wisdom with time and reflection. Distractions blur focus, and desires born of ignorance misguide. Mindfulness is the compass that aligns effort with purpose and clarity. Thank you for watching. Buddha's teachings are always with you. Subscribe to our channel and we will see you in the next video.